Bordeaux, if you want to know a quick geography lesson, Bordeaux is this little area right here in southwestern France. It's made up of all of these sub-regions here. There's left bank wines, right bank wines. We're going to learn about a little bit more about that in a little bit. And there's an area in the middle. We're going to get into some detail on that in a minute. One of the reasons Bordeaux makes such great wines is because it's unusually warm for its location in the world. The result of that is because the Gulf Stream that comes up, from Cuba and the Bahamas and that sort of thing, warms the air and allows the growing season to be long enough so that the grapes can ripen properly. And that's why Bordeaux, is so highly regarded as a wine growing region. So it's unusually warm, or the growing season is unusually long for its positioning on the earth. Here's a little history before we get started. Wine was introduced to Bordeaux by the Romans, probably in the mid-1st century, to provide wine for local consumption. And wine production has been happening continuously since then. In the 12th century, the popularity of Bordeaux wines in England increased dramatically following the marriage of King Henry II, there he is down there, of England to Eleanor of Aquitaine, which is the area that Bordeaux was part of, which made Bordeaux part of England, causing wine from Bordeaux to be heavily exported into England. That's one of the reasons, if you talk to anybody in the English-speaking world, they consider Bordeaux to be the finest wines in the world. If you talk to the French, a lot of them consider wines from Burgundy to be the greatest wines in the world, but a lot of that dates back to this period here. The blend of wines was called Claret in England, and the English still refer to Bordeaux wine as Claret. So if you ever hear that term, that's where it started. But today it's becoming more and more synonymous with red blends and that sort of thing. But the true meaning of Claret is Bordeaux wines in England, if you've ever heard that term. At the end of the 100 Years' War in 1453, the French repossessed Bordeaux, but that did not stop Bordeaux, the love of Bordeaux wine on the part of the British. That's why, especially in the English-speaking world, Bordeaux is considered some of the greatest wine in the world. It's really taken off in China as well, but that's a whole different topic. In 1855, the chateaus of Bordeaux were classified into different quality rankings. We're going to get into some detail on that in a minute. And this classification remains widely in use today. From 1875 to 1892, almost all Bordeaux wines were ruined by a phylloxera infestation. Phylloxera is a little mite that attaches itself to the bottom of the roots and kills the vines. But the region's wine industry was rescued by grafting the native vines onto American rootstock. So it's not the first, it's probably the first time, but not the last time, that America, saved France's bacon. And we have a history of doing that throughout our history. We talked a little bit about the classifications of 1855. It's important because it still rules how people view Bordeaux wine today. In preparation for the Universal Exhibition in Paris, wine brokers, they divided 61 of the best chateaux into 5 levels. They're known as crus or growth. You'll hear the term first, second, third, fourth, and fifth growths a lot. Because at the time, the left bank wines, and we'll get into what left bank means in a minute, were considered higher quality, only left bank wines were considered. With only a few changes, that classification was still in place today. The chateaus, the wineries that were ranked in 1855, most of them are still in existence, and most of them still have the same rankings that they had in 1855. Only 4 made the top level, known as Premier Cru or First Growth. Excuse me, that was Chateau Haut-Brion, Lafite Rothschild, Chateau Latour, and Chateau Margaux. In 1973, Mouton Rothschild was elevated. So of all the wines in Bordeaux, those are the most highly regarded. They're the most highly collected, and they command the highest prices. And those are their 5 labels of those wines on the screen there. In addition to the 5 first growths, there's 14 second growths, 14 thirds, 10 fourth, and 18 fifth growths. And as you can probably suspect, the higher the classification, the higher the price. Some right and left bank producers that weren't part of this ranking period in 1855 have developed their own ranking system, and we're going to learn a little bit about that as we go on tonight. Anytime you have any questions about anything, please pipe in. Now, you're only allowed to grow certain grapes in Bordeaux. If you ever talk to a California winemaker or someone from somebody else and they say we grow Bordeaux varietals, it means it's one of the grapes that we're going to talk about here. The most widely produced grapes are red grapes in Bordeaux. It's about 85% of production. Merlot is the top grown grape in Bordeaux, followed by Cabernet Sauvignon, followed by Cabernet Franc, followed by Petit Verdot. If you've ever had a Petit Verdot, it's a big, tannic, inky wine. It adds a lot of color and structure to wines when they blend it in. Malbec and Carmenere are also allowed, but they're very rarely planted. In terms of white grapes, which is about 15% of the production, Sauvignon Blanc and Semillon are the most produced grapes, and occasionally they'll mix in a little bit of Muscadel. Muscadel adds a little bit of fruitiness. Hey, white wines of Bordeaux. White wines from Bordeaux come from southern Bordeaux. They'll come either from the Pessac-Léon area, Graves, or Entre-deux-Mers in here. And depending on where you're located, determines whether you're a superstar or not. The Bordeaux wine superstars come from this area here. They come from Pessac-Léon, where they make dry Sauvignon Blanc Semillon blends. I just did a quick survey of local Total Wine. The pricing for those is somewhere between $20 and $145. Or from Graves, same thing, dry Sauvignon Blanc Semillon blends. They're ranging from the high 20s to the mid 30s. Those are the most highly regarded whites. But some of the most of the unappreciated cousins come from the Entre-deux-Mers area, which is this area right here in between the 2 rivers here. And that's convenient because Entre-deux-Mers translated means between 2 seas and rivers. So it's not left bank, it's not right bank, it's in between the 2 banks. They're mostly 100% Sauvignon Blanc, but there's many blends. Like one we're having tonight, if you got the Mouton Cadet, is a blend. They're mostly less than $15, and they often carry the Bordeaux designation. They won't say Entre-deux-Mers, they'll say Bordeaux on them, as those of you that got the wines probably have. They tend to be a more fruit, the whites from this area, the Sauvignon Blancs from this area, tend to be a little bit more fruit forward, less grassy and citrusy than Sauvignon Blancs from the rest of the world. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about what left bank and right bank means. There's two main rivers in Bordeaux. There's the Gironde. Oops, let me go back. I got really excited here. And there is the Dordogne rivers. Anything to the right of the Gironde is considered left bank. Anything right of the Gironde up here and the Dordogne over here is considered right bank. That'll make sense in a minute. When they refer to banks, that's what they're referring to. There's a river, or it's actually an estuary. It comes straight from the ocean that cuts right through Bordeaux. Left bank versus white bank makes a difference. If you get a left bank red wine, It's Cabernet dominant, means the predominant grape that they use in left bank wines is Cabernet. It's got grippier tannin than right bank, and it's more age worthy. You can lay it down for a longer period of time. If it's right bank, which is all of these subregions over here, it's Merlot dominant. It's a little more fruit forward. It's softer tannin, means it doesn't have as much grippy tannins. It doesn't make your mouth pucker up quite as much. And if you want a younger Bordeaux, they're much more approachable at a younger age because the tannins are softer than a left bank Bordeaux. The reason for that is the soil. This is your typical left bank soil. It's got a lot of gravel, and what the gravel does is the sun hits the gravel, heats up the rocks, then the rocks heat up the vines. What that does is it allows the grapes to ripen more, and it extends the growing season. And since Cabernet Sauvignon needs a longer growing season, having this type of soil is essential in that part of the world that's not quite as warm naturally, given its location on Earth. Now, this is your typical right bank soil. It's clay soil, it's wetter, and it's cooler. Merlot loves this type of soil. So that is why on the left bank, they primarily grow Cabernet Sauvignon, and on the right bank, they primarily grow Merlot. So if you walk into a wine store and say, I want a bottle of Merlot, or I want a bottle of Bordeaux, and they ask you, do you want left bank or right bank? If you're more interested in something that's predominantly Cabernet, you'll ask for left bank. If you're interested in something that's more prominently Merlot, you'll ask for right bank. And that's the difference between the two areas. Some right bank Bordeaux superstars are Saint Emilion, which is right here, and Pomerol. Those are the two superstars. Those are the two most highly regarded areas on the right bank. Just doing a quick price check, they range from $20 to $500 plus for Saint Emilion. Pomerol, just what was stock at Total Wine. If there's examples outside of this, they were $25 to $250. Now we talked about the classifications of 1855 for left bank. Saint Emilion has its own classification system, but unlike the classifications of 1855, this is reevaluated every 10 years. If you look for a bottle of wine from Saint Emilion and you want to know where it is in the quality hierarchy, you could look at the label. If it says Premier Grand Cru Classe A, it's the top of the heap. It's probably going to be considered the top quality and bring in the most money. Then there's Premier Grand Cru Classe B. Then there's just Grand Cru Classe A without an A or a B on it. It's the third level. Then you have Saint Emilion Grand Cru, which is level 4. And then you have another level that just says Saint Emilion. It's still great wine, but it's not classified as one of the higher levels. Pomerol, the other area, doesn't have any classification system. It'll just say Pomerol on it. So if you're looking for a wine from Saint Emilion, look for that on the label. It'll tell you where it is in the hierarchy. And just like with all the different growth levels from the left bank, the price is going to go up the higher you go up the hierarchy. Now there's some unappreciated cousins on the right side as well, on the right bank as well. Those are question mark dash Saint Emilion. There was a lot of regions that had a name, and then they had this great idea. Hey, let's just hyphenate Saint Emilion on the back of our region name, and then we'll be more highly regarded. So that's what you have all of these over here. You got Montage Saint Emilion, Lussac Saint Emilion, Perseguin Saint Emilion, and Saint Georges Saint Emilion. These were separate regions that, for marketing purposes, decided to latch on to the Saint Emilion name. And there's only one that did that with Pomerol, the land end of Pomerol, which is over here. And those are, $13 plus, $18 plus. Despite the fact they were unethical and trying to leech onto the St. Elmion name, they still produce a lot of really good wines. And if you're looking for some reasonably priced right bank wines, that may be someplace that you want to look. Then you have the area over here. It's the wine we're having tonight that I suggested we had tonight, is Fransac. Now, all of these are primarily Merlot, with Cabernet Franc is the second level wine, not Cabernet Sauvignon. Those are $15 plus. And then there's another small region here called Canon Fransac. So if you're looking for some nice, really tasty, right bank wines that'll cost you a little less money, look for one of those things on the label. Now, the wine we're having tonight is from Fransac. It's mostly Merlot and Cab Franc. There's 106 winemakers in the area. They produce 5 million bottles a year, so they're a significant operation. You don't need to age this. It drinks very well at a young age. Excuse me. If there's other unappreciated right bank cousins as well, in addition to the ones we talked to about. If you walk, if you go to the wine shop, you can look under right bank, and there's a number of different ones that are under a classification of Côte de Bordeaux. There's 5 areas: Bale, Cadillac, Castellon, Francs, and Saint Foy, that they all banded together to create another sub-application called Côte de Bordeaux. They put together some different quality standards and stuff. There's another area called Côtes de Bourg. All of these tend to be Cabernet Franc dominant. Instead of being Merlot dominant like the wine we had, Cabernet Franc tends to be the primary wine. And you can get these as low as $10. They're very nice food wines. They're very nice Tuesday night Bordeaux's and that sort of thing. Okay, now we're going to move over to the left bank. There's your left bank superstars. You got Saint Estèphe. They're all of them are in these areas here. All of these are going to be Cabernet dominant with Merlot, Cab Franc, and Petit Verdot. Pauillac, Saint Julien, Margaux, and Pessac Grave. They'll range in price from $30 to $2,500, depending on what growth they are and the reputation of the winery and that sort of thing. And there's 2 unappreciated cousins in this area. There's Haut-Meadoux, which is Cabernet dominant with Merlot, Cabernet Franc, and Petit Verdot. That's the wine we're having tonight. You can generally pick those up for between $20 and $35. And if it simply says Medoc, it's in the northern part of Bordeaux. It's a little different. This is left bank, but these are primarily Merlot dominant. This is more of a clay soil up there. And they'll also have some Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Petit Verdot. No, you can get those, from $20 to $30 in that. The Bordeaux designation, some other underappreciated cousins. If it says Bordeaux on red wines, it could be a red wine from Entre de Mer. It's the white wine area we talked about at the beginning. Red wines from that area are not allowed to put the name of the area on the wines. And also, if it says Bordeaux Superior, they're red wines from anywhere in Bordeaux. It doesn't have to be from one of the designated regions, but they have stricter regulations and they have higher alcohol requirements. So they have to have a little more alcohol. They have a minimum number of alcohol. I think it's 12.5 or 13%. It escapes me right now. And you can pick these up for $10 plus. So